program that had a great intention, and then you expand it outside its original mandates. So what we need to do is make sure that those 4 programs, and the VA, that's the fourth, those 4 programs that the government should be effectively and efficiently running, they should do that first and foremost before they try to grab the entire 1/6 of our production, which is the healthcare industry.
Travis.
Colonel West, I have a question for you with respect to the school board issue. We have many undocumented citizens that are in this country.
You can call them illegal.
Of which their children are seeking an education.
Yep. DREAM Act is coming
from our
up.
system.
Yep.
And when they get to the registrar with their birth certificate, typically that birth certificate has been copied several times. It's not an original birth certificate. And they say, my child, XYZ, has come to your school. By federal law, we must admit that child to our school. The question I have for you is that on their birth certificate, sometimes we can see, and I can say this because I'm not a school board member yet. If I was a school board member, it would be a different situation because of identification purposes. But the school clerks can see where that birth certificate has been altered. Specifically, typically, it's an age situation, okay? Where that you have, let's say, a Mexican-born student that typically is smaller in stature than a typical American, black or white, or Asian or any other person, okay? And therefore, that their parents have brought them into that school, and they're 4 or 5 years older than they actually are, but the birth certificate reflects difference to get the education required that their parents expect them to have. What can you do at the federal level to help that?
I think
it's really not a state issue, it's a federal issue.
Well, I think the most important thing, number one, is, we tried this back in 1986 under President Ronald Reagan with the amnesty program. We thought it was 2 to 3 million, and where are we today? 12, 15, 20? Who knows? But we still have not secured our borders. We have not enforced our laws. Ladies and gentlemen, understand something. The United States of America is a constitutional republic. It's not a democracy. Democracy is the process by which we elect our officials. And in being a constitutional republic, that means 2 things. That means that the rule of law is preeminent, and the respect of the individual rights and freedoms is the second thing. The rule of law is the Constitution of the United States of America. That means that America is established for Americans. But what we are doing is, we are allowing people to come here and affect our national security, our education system, our healthcare system, our local criminality, and also our economy. We need to have people to say, we respect your borders and your language and your culture. Because when I was a teacher at Deerfield Beach High School, let me tell you what happens when you have the kids that come in and they can't speak good English. Then what happens to the ability to meet the terminal learning objectives in that classroom? And so that has a second and third order effect on your child that you're sending. And so now we create an education system where we're not preparing the next generation of productive Americans. All we're doing is preparing a bunch of kids who can barely take a test. So one of the critical things we have to do, and this is not about being xenophobic, because I'm sure that's what my fellow friend here will say. But this is about standing up for the borders, language, and culture of this country. This is about standing, we don't have any problem with immigration, legal immigration. There's a front door, come through the front door. But if we're not careful, how many people study Rome? When Rome stopped protecting their northern border, look at what happened to it. When Rome had corruption in its governing body, what happened to it? When Rome devalued its own currency, what happened to it? When Rome stopped producing and manufacturing and importing more, what happened to it? I mean, the great thing about history, it tends to repeat itself. And we're on that path right now. So the thing that I can do at the federal government level, something like the DREAM Act, I don't support. E-Verify, we need to make sure that our employees, it should be mandatory for E-Verify, and we have to disincentivize the care that we're offering for people to come here, because I want to see Americans get back to work. That's the most important thing.
Gwen.
I know on the news tonight when you were talking about that, I don't know if it's called DREAM Act or not.
DREAM Act, yes.
That is the students that are wanting to go to college here and their parents came over illegally, and they are protesting the amount that they're having to pay to go to school. They want to be able to pay the same fees,
in-state
fees, as an American citizen.
Yeah.
And that amendment is coming, I don't know as it's on an amendment, but it's coming up. For
Yeah, they are making an amendment. See, that's one of the terrible things that is happening in Washington, D.C. And that's one of the legislative reforms that we need to have up in Congress. A bill should stand on its own. It should not look like a Christmas tree. So all of a sudden you have a defense. Everyone likes to put things on defense appropriations bill. Hate crime goes on defense appropriations. No one's going to vote against troops. DREAM Act goes against the defense appropriations. You know, all of these different type of things that they know could not stand on its own, they attach to the defense appropriations. That's one of the critical legislative reforms that we need to have up in Washington, D.C.
Gentleman in the back, would you give us your name, please?
Thank you, sir.
Question that I do have for you is, with regard to the subject that we just talked about, does that require a constitutional amendment to bring about the changes that we just discussed?
Oh, for the legislation to stand on something? I don't think you need to have a constitutional amendment, because one of the things that, you know, I kind of get in trouble with a lot of the special interest people on the right, because I tell them, I don't want to see the Constitution become a Christmas tree. Every single special interest group says, I want this amendment, I want that amendment. You know, let's just do what's right. Let's pass a House and a Senate rule that says, you know, every piece of legislation that comes up must stand on its own and must be verified against the Constitution of the United States of America. And I think that you will see all of this wasteful spending and everything go asunder.
We have a serious issue in the Middle East with Iran apparently developing nuclear weapons. What's your take on the situation, and do you have any ideas about what we should be doing?
Well, first and foremost, I think that right now we are at a critical mass situation with the U.S. and Israel relations. Understand something, that Israel is a bright shining light in a sea of darkness that's being led by theocrats, despots, dictators, and autocrats. And if we don't understand one simple thing about that part of the world, and I've got 43 months over there, they only understand two things: strength and might. Compromise, negotiation, appeasement. When you have this Sir Neville Chamberlain type of foreign policy in the Middle East, it don't work. They see that as weakness, and they're going to come at you. So the critical thing we have to understand is there comes a time when talk is over, and they would understand that. You know, one of the things that drives me nutty in Afghanistan and also in Iraq are these rules of engagement, where we tell our soldiers they can't fire until they're fired upon. They can't go out and, you know, do a patrol and an operation in the village until they let them know that they're coming. They can, you know, detain and capture someone, but if they don't have certain pieces of evidence, they got to release them. Or even worse, the tribal leader or his dad can come in with a letter and say, my son just give him to me, he won't go back to the Taliban. And we release him. So it's those type of things, once again, that are causing our young men and women to be maimed and killed over there. Instead of us having some clear and definable engagement criteria that enables them to have the initiative, you can't telegraph what you're going to do to this enemy. When you tell them that you're going to leave at a certain date, guess what? They're cutting deals with the bad guys, and they're just waiting. Yeah. And you already see that starting to happen in Iraq. And let me tell you something. Just because you say combat operations are over, unless you got the enemy to agree with that,
right. That's right. That's it.
There's only two ways you win a war, people. And if you think back, since World War II, the United States of America has been fighting half-measure warfare. And what has that got us? It got us a DMZ in Korea, where I was in 1995. It got us Vietnam, where my older brother fought. In Desert Shield, Desert Storm, we stopped, and then, you know, I had to go back later as a lieutenant colonel. If we don't understand that you win or you lose, that's it. But when you look at our national security strategy, getting back to your point, no one is talking about jihadism, Islamic terrorism, Muslim extremism. When you read the after-action report from the shooting that occurred at Fort Hood, Texas, they classified it as workplace violence. If you don't want to define who you're fighting against, how can you be successful in a combat operation? As such as this one here. And don't forget something, okay? We celebrated 9/11, you know, a couple of weeks ago. That was 9 years ago it happened. But 10 years ago, Muhammad Atta and 5 or 6 of his bubbas were living right here in Broward County. They took their flight training down in Opelika. They bought their tickets at Lauderdale by the Sea. So now, 9 years after 9/11, what have we learned? We still hand out student visas willy-nilly, which is what we did with them. And then we come to find out that the number 2 person for international operations for Al-Qaeda lived in Miramar, Florida, and attended a mosque in Pembroke Pines. So what have we learned? We are not taking this